Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I'm your host, Stone Shields. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here this afternoon. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at the top 25 Bengals free agent targets on the defensive side of the football. We had a video that came out a week or so ago detailing guys on the offensive side. Today, we're going to be spending time talking about guys on the defensive side as well. So stay tuned for that. Got 25 names that we will be breaking down for you guys here on today's show. But before we get into that, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. Also, see a lot more short-form content up there these days as well. Trying to get to 600 followers. Help me out so I can help the bosses out, make them happy. Trying to get to 600 here in the coming weeks. Give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. All right, let's talk pass rusher here at that edge spot. Obviously, Sam Hubbard is no longer going to be out there for the Cincinnati Bengals after he announced his retirement. But even if he was coming back, Cincinnati has a lot of work to do in that regard. A lot of uncertainty at this position of the defense. So let's get into some potential edge rusher candidates for the Cincinnati Bengals. First up here is Khalil Mack. And start out with a big name here in Khalil Mack. He's kind of molding his future. I think he will come back ultimately and end up playing football another season at the professional level. He is a guy that obviously came into the league years ago as a phenomenal player out of Buffalo, and he really has delivered no matter where he has been, whether it be Vegas, whether it be Chicago, whether it be Los Angeles. Khalil Mack is a guy that when he comes in, your defense immediately gets better. I still believe he has a lot to offer in this league. Second guy up here, Josh Sweat out of the Philadelphia Eagles. Sweat's a guy that made himself a ton of money really throughout the entirety of the season, but more specifically in the playoffs, and even more specifically than that, the Super Bowl with his performance. Was able to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground a few times. The rumblings around the NFL at this point are that the Eagles are not going to be able to retain him, so he is going to cash in free agency this offseason. Will Cincinnati be able to spend that much money on a guy like Josh Sweat? Probably not, given the priorities that they have in line, but he certainly is a guy that makes your defense and your pass rush a heck of a lot better. Haason Reddick here of the New York Jets. Reddick, of course, really had a tumultuous season last year. He was holding out. Eventually was able to come back, play some football. Is he the same player that he once was in Philadelphia? I'm not quite sure, but I'm not looking for drama. And it seems like Reddick has moved past that, but that still is a lot of drama there for me. I'm probably staying away from Haason Reddick personally. Baron Browning, edge rusher here out of the Denver Broncos. Baron Browning is a guy that, of course, went to Ohio State. We spent a lot of time talking about Baron Browning kind of coming up for the trade deadline as a guy that potentially Cincinnati would want to bring in. Of course, spent some time with the Arizona Cardinals as well. I am still interested in bringing in Baron Browning, and I think you could do so at a decent price as well. Matthew Judon, next up here on this list, had a great start to his career with the New England Patriots, most recently, of course, playing with the Atlanta Falcons. I am a big fan of Judon's game. Taking a look here at some of these numbers, still was very productive, I would say, for you in 2024. Played all 17 games as well. Had some pass breakups. He's a guy that can drop back in coverage, and he's a really versatile player. I certainly am interested in getting Matt Judon here in Cincinnati. Leads us to the pinned comment of today's video. Do you want the Bengals to sign an edge rusher? Obviously, need to address that room in some capacity, whether it's through the draft, free agency, trade, or a combination of all three. But let me know. Do you want the Bengals to sign one in free agency? Type Y for yes or N for no. If that ad comes here on YouTube, totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let's move towards the interior of the defensive line here at this point. Lots of work to do here as well. B.J. Hill probably no longer going to be with the Cincinnati Bengals as he is a free agent. Didn't, of course, include him on this list. But you're looking to build around young guys like Chris Jenkins Jr. and McKinley Jackson. First up, Javon Kinlaw here on this list out of the New York Jets. This is a guy that comes in, brings that veteran presence. It's going to be a common theme that we're going to be talking about really along all positions of your defense. I would like him to come in, potentially be a really good player for you. It's all a matter of you can get him at the right price. Poona Ford, another guy that gets floated around a lot, seemingly every offseason, and continues to play at a high level, no matter where he is at, whether it's Seattle, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's the Los Angeles Chargers. I am a big believer in Poona Ford. I think he's a quality player, and I think he would fit along really nicely in Al Golden's defense. DJ Jones, another guy that we talked about around the trade deadline as well with the Denver Broncos. I think Denver's really defensive line as a whole was really, really underrated last year. And I think a big part of that was DJ Jones. The guy that's a big body. He comes in there and look at all those games that he has played. I want guys that are going to be available. DJ Jones certainly is available at all times. Calais Campbell, I mean, the guy just continues to play great football. It really is hard to believe. He is, defying father time, really, at this point. Continues to play outstanding football at the professional level. Most recently with Miami, was it with Atlanta before that. The Bengals, of course, went up against him a lot when he was with Baltimore as well. He's a guy that I've been saying that Bengals should be trying to get for seemingly the past few years. They haven't done it yet, but I still think he has a lot left in the tank. I would be interested in bringing in a guy like Calais Campbell. Great for the locker room, too, as well. Sebastian Joseph Day out of the Titans. I would say Sebastian Joseph Day's career really to this point probably hasn't culminated the way that he would have hoped or liked, or certainly the way Tennessee would either. Kind of taking a flyer on going in for a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day. Just a matter of if you can get him at a reasonable price or not. We'll continue with our defensive free agent targets here in a moment, but first, a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Want to let you guys know that Bengals Sideline hats are out, and they are available now. That's chatsports.com/Bengals Sideline. I've got a few of these myself. Really, really love them. Obviously, it is the offseason, but that doesn't mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals swag, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. It's chatsports.com/Bengals Sideline. That link's in the comments and the description of today's video. Let's go corner here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cam Taylor-Britt probably going to be back for you at that corner spot, but really a disastrous 2024 season for him. Josh Newton is across from him with, uncertainty around the health of Dax Hill and DJ Turner, but certainly a room that you want to address. Mike Hilton, by the way, probably gone as well. Byron Murphy, first up on this list. Byron Murphy's going to get a lot of money, but I absolutely love Byron Murphy. He was phenomenal for the Minnesota Vikings and was really good for the Arizona Cardinals prior to that as well. Again, he's going to get a sizable deal. You've got a lot of guys you got to pay, so I don't know if you can bring him in, but shoot, if you do, I think he really is a bona fide cornerback one in this league. Big fan of Byron Murphy Jr. DJ Reed, next up here out of the New York Jets. He's a guy that, spent some time in Seattle before going over to the New York Jets, and he's really kind of gone on a run here. He's a later round pick, when he was drafted, and he's starting to really play good football here. I think he's closing in on 30. I want to say he's in the high 20s right here, so he's looking to get one more big deal. Somebody's going to give it to him. I'm not super high on DJ Reed, but I wouldn't hate it, obviously, if Cincinnati were able to land him. Asante Samuel Jr., next up here, cornerback for the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm a big fan of him as well. Just question marks in regards to what exactly his contract is going to look like. Kind of a reoccurring theme here as we progress. 2024 only played 4 games. I want guys that are going to be out there and available to me at all times. The Bengals had some injury issues as well defensively. Obviously, you can only control a certain extent of that, but I do have interest in Asante Samuel Jr. Stephon Gilmore, he's kind of at the point in his career where he plays a year and then he kind of regroups in the offseason and he sees what the plan is after that, but he's still playing at a high level, has certainly bounced around the past few years. Carolina, Indianapolis, Dallas, and most recently with the Minnesota Vikings. I still think he can play at a high level. He's a championship football player, obviously has championship experience when he was with New England, and would provide a great veteran presence and hopefully help out some of those young guys like Josh Newton in particular. Patriots guy here, Jonathan Jones, a guy that we talked about during the trade deadline as well. This is a guy that also is a world champion, has spent the entirety of his career with the New England Patriots, but he kind of got phased out of what they were doing in New England, and I think he will probably end up finding a new home this season. Bengals need a veteran to come in, especially with Mike Hilton probably on his way out. After his tweet, by the time this video comes out, he very well might officially be out. But Jonathan Jones is a guy that can provide some stability there for you on the back end. Don't miss out any Bengals free agency news or rumors. We got you covered here at the channel. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Let's talk safety here on today's show. Geno Stone, I've come out and said that I probably would just cut Geno Stone, but it doesn't feel like Cincinnati is going to do that. I think they really liked what they got out of Jordan Battle to end the year, but I think you can't just run it back with the safety room. Von Bell's going to be gone. Got to bring some more bodies in. The hottest name out there at this point is Javon Holland of the Miami Dolphins. He's a guy that flies around, makes a lot of plays for you. He got really good ball skills, good speed as well, good leadership. I think Javon Holland's going to garner a sizable deal wherever he lands up. Next up here, Justin Simmons, a guy that, of course, was playing opposite Jesse Bates III. Man, do we miss Jesse Bates III. Anytime we're talking Atlanta, anytime we're talking safeties, I feel like I'm bringing up JB3. Boy, do I miss him, and I know all you guys do as well. But regardless, Justin Simmons was an elite safety in this league for a long time, especially when he was with Denver. I still thought he played at a high level this past year as well, 7 PBUs. He makes your defense better immediately if he were to come to town. Talanoa Hufanga of the San Francisco 49ers. He was a guy that really didn't do a ton for San Francisco this past year, but he really showed some flashes probably earlier in his career, particularly that 2022 season, really put up some big numbers. Has since fallen off a little bit, but if you get him in the right system with Al Golden, I think he can make your football team better. I do have some interest in him out of San Francisco. Trayvon Moehrig out of the Las Vegas Raiders, again at that safety position. He had a ton of tackles this past year for Las Vegas, racking up over 100. He's a guy that really is a versatile player that can wear several different hats for you. Could perhaps be a nice fill-in for a guy like Mike Hilton. Could line him up several different areas of the field, and he can show out there for you and make plays. Last up from a safety perspective here is Quandre Diggs. Most recently spent his time with the Tennessee Titans. You guys probably remember him the most from his time with the Seattle Seahawks. Numbers, obviously only played 7 games with Tennessee this past year. Not sure. Sometimes these DBs can really fall off quickly. I thought he did a lot of great stuff in his tenure in Seattle. But I'm probably staying away from Quandre Diggs personally. Talk linebackers here on today's show. We were going to say Zach Bond here at the top of this list, but he since has agreed to terms with the Philadelphia Eagles on an extension. So I've got Levante David up here. Now, David was, for a long time, one of the most underrated players, certainly one of the most underrated linebackers in professional football, but he is certainly aging. He is getting up there in age, but I thought he really showed some good stuff in spurts this year, particularly in the playoff game against Washington. I thought he had a really, really good game. You want to bring in an older guy at that linebacker spot. He is a great leader. I do have some interest, but you better not be paying him too much money. Nick Bolton is a phenomenal player out of Kansas City. I've said before on the show, you don't want to get into a habit of bringing in guys from KC, right? That's your main rival that isn't in the AFC North. But Bolton's been around the block. He's made big-time plays in big-time games, and he really would help your defense. Imagine him paired with Logan Wilson. My goodness, look out. That would be one of the best linebacking duos in the National Football League. I have some interest in bringing in Nick Bolton, but he will not be cheap. Robert Spillane kind of has flown under the radar here for Las Vegas, but he continually just decides or just goes out there and performs, does really well. Again, under the radar type guy. He's a guy that you're not going to bring in to be a starting linebacker for you, but he could certainly provide some depth for you at that linebacker spot. Bobby Wagner also on this list. Man, he just seemingly doesn't age. He had a phenomenal year for the Washington Commanders this past season. Bobby Wagner is a guy that provides instant leadership, but also is probably more of a one-year deal type guy, not a long-term solution. There's been a lot of rumors about him reuniting with his old coach Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. Wouldn't be opposed to a Bobby Wagner signing, but I would consider it very unlikely. EJ Speed last up here for the Indianapolis Colts at that linebacker spot. He also has kind of flown under the radar. I think he is a really solid player. I really think when you look at Indianapolis' defense top to bottom, there's a lot of solid players, and I'm expecting Lou Anarumo to come in there and be able to do some good things. But I do have interest in E.J. Speed. 142 tackles this past season, is able to fly around, is a real cerebral player as well, and always seems to be in the right place at the right time. I'm a fan of E.J. Speed.